This time of year is really hard for me. I'm struggling with fertility challenges, and being around family can bring up a lot of complicated feelings. I might need some extra love and patience. It is possible to create gluten-free versions of mince pies and dairy-free. You can use gluten-free ready-made flour. You can go as far as making almond. I made almond-based ones, coconut butter. Now, you can also make dairy-free, dairy and gluten-free alternatives to bread sauce, which have been delicious as well. They're not quite the same, but when you have it as a medley with everything, then it's delicious. Hi and welcome everybody to the Fertility podcast, where you will be empowered to learn how to thrive and conceive with endometriosis. If you want to understand more about your endometriosis, how it can affect your fertility, and how you can personally take action to optimize your health and life, then this is the place for you. I am your host, Lizzie Alexander, founder of the Fertility Specialist. As a doctor of marine ecology turned integrated nutrition health coach and holistic massage therapist, I bring a unique perspective to our discussions. Most importantly, I know what it's like to experience chronic fatigue and endo and struggle for years with primary and secondary infertility. I am now a super busy, thriving military wife, business owner and mother of an adorable little boy. Join me every Wednesday as I dive into topics that will support and guide you, from knowledge about endo and conceiving to nutrition, lifestyle and mindset, pain management to assisted fertility support, functional nutrition and testing, and much more. This podcast is designed to enhance your knowledge so you can explore the whys behind your endo and fertility struggles, whilst moving forwards towards thriving and conceiving. Please note that this is not meant to replace your current medical advice. Together, we will explore a holistic approach to healing that equips you with a toolbox full of diverse strategies to help you manage your endo and enhance your fertility journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy listening. This episode is brought to you by my Ultimate Endo Fertility Library, available through the Fertility app. This app, available on Apple and Google Play, makes it super easy to access valuable resources and courses right on your phone, even offline, making it perfect for meditations and travel. Inside the free library, you will find essential first steps to support your healing journey, including a quick start ebook, symptom tracker, delicious recipes, workbooks, guided meditations, and other helpful resources. So make sure to check out the show notes for the link to start exploring these resources today. Hello, my beautiful listeners. How are you all this week? So hopefully you're not full of winter cold, and apologies if I sound a little bit nasally. I think I'm brewing a cold. So today I was going to be doing an episode on surgery preparation, as I feel it's very much needed. However, with it being nearly Christmas, I realised that I wanted to provide some support to you on surviving Christmas, because this is very poignant at this point in time. Now, while it can be a magical time of year for many, it can be complicated, and it can be a really emotional time of year when you're navigating endometriosis and fertility challenges, especially if you've experienced pregnancy and baby loss. So I wanted to bring an episode around providing you with some emotional resilience and also some tips around enjoying food and drink, whilst maintaining some level of good nutrition so that you don't feel stressed out and out of control, and then feel even more stressed when you end up being like super bloated and in pain. So as I'm recording this, Christmas is literally around the corner. I'm actually recording this on the day I put it out, which is quite unusual. We're literally 2 weeks away today. Firstly, I don't know how it happened. I feel like I blinked and it was September. And for me, because I'm not in the UK, or I am from the UK, I kind of associate Christmas with cold and, snow, even if it's not snowing, but wearing big coats, kind of having those dark evenings, and then the joy of the Christmas lights and log fires. So living in a hot country kind of means I feel really discombobulated. And my mother was visiting for almost 3 weeks. She just went last week. And so we've spent a lot of time making special memories, not in the slightest bit Christmassy, which has been pretty good, actually. We've been to the desert, swimming and hiking in wadis and on the beach. So that's a little bit for me what I've been up to. But around Christmas, I want to kind of ask you or ask yourself how you feel about it. Are you kind of part in joy? It is an emotional minefield. Everywhere you look, there are reminders of the family you're desperately hoping to create. Children of friends and family are running around. Work colleagues are telling you that they're tired of juggling work and preparing for preparing for Christmas and all the school things that they have to go to with their kids. And all you want to say is just be grateful you have children. There are excited grandparents, pregnancy announcements at family gatherings, and each of these moments can feel like a sharp, unexpected jab right in the gut. Now, I remember meeting up with friends and their children, watching everyone else's joy, but feeling a sense of isolation and sadness. Now, I know I'm pretty good compared to many from those that I've spoke to in coping with the emotional turmoil of trying to conceive. Otherwise, I literally wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, recording this podcast and in the job that I do. But I'm also good at smiling on the outside, while on the inside, my heart is in pain. And I know that so many of you are also feeling this. Yes, it is different now that I have one child and trying to conceive with our second. But I remember back to those years when we were trying to conceive our son and nothing was happening, that feeling of desperation. And it was worse where there were questions from well-meaning family, more the older varieties, the aunts and the uncles. My grandparents are sadly not alive, but it would have been, I suppose, at Christmas gatherings asking when we were to have a family. And I literally just wanted to shout back, we're trying, but you don't, do you? You're polite. And comments like, you better get on with it because you're not young, because we got married later, or just relax, it'll be fine. I mean, that is, I think, literally the worst one, and it really didn't help. So, ones that I've had recently that are just really great on me even now, when people, at Christmas, they're well-meaning, but they go, just the one. When are you going to have more? And I know that there are also those of you out there who have had one and are also struggling to have more. And it doesn't matter what situation you're in. It just is one of these time of year where you can end up being triggered. And I think it's really good to be aware of understanding what those triggers are and how to try and cope around that so that you can get the joy out of Christmas whilst recognizing that you have that, those emotions and it's normal. Now, I know over the years, I've learned to tell people openly that we're struggling, and we had it in the past, and that we've tried everything. And most of the time it can really help. Now, the odd person can be super insensitive, but I do think talking and sharing how you feel, even if it's just to say we're trying, I don't really want to talk about it, but I just wanted to share that, so you don't say anything that's awkward for you or you find out later. And, the only thing is then you find some people tiptoe around you, so you can't win really. But I do find when I've spoken to people, it is often easier to have things out in the open. But equally, some people don't want that. But each comment that people say is like a tiny needle, isn't it? So here's what I want you to know. Your feelings are valid. Your pain is real, and you are absolutely not alone on this journey. I hear so many stories, and there are so many couples out there feeling like you do. So today, I want to create a safe space, a space where we acknowledge the complexity of these emotions, where I touch on this, on the rawness of it, the grief, the anxiety, and the frustration and the fear. But also that there's a space of hope, of practical strategies, of gentle self-compassion. Literally today, I saw a really, really good post, and it was around Oprah Winfrey's just started her podcast, and it was a review of some of the aspects there around the fact that every time you hear a pregnancy announcement, it's quite easy to kind of like jump to that conclusion of, why is it not me? Why is it not me? But maybe we should be reframing that into thinking, gosh, that's brilliant that they got pregnant. There's hope for me, spinning it around that, someone else has struggled and they've got pregnant. So it means that next time it could be me. And I've definitely found that helpful in the past, is rather than kind of like, it's automatic for our brain to pick up on the negative. Whereas if you reframe it and think about it in a positive statement, it not only helps you emotionally, but it also opens up that attraction, like the law of attraction. It's bringing you what you're thinking about, rather than thinking about it's never going to be me. And this is a whole nother podcast episode on the law of attraction. So diving back into what I was talking about, I want to break down some of this into, because it is a huge topic, into manageable bites. I want you to remember that you're strong and that you adapt and you find ways, you'll find ways through, and you will find ways to enjoy Christmas, but it needs to be on your terms. And I think if you have time and space to think about this can really, really help. So first, let's talk about emotions. Christmas has this magical ability to amplify every single feeling you're experiencing. I mean, you're surrounded by all the romantic movies that are on there, and I remember back to being when I was single. I was 35 and single, and it was kind of like rubbing in your face. I could, hadn't met someone, etc., etc. And it is everywhere. So there's grief. It's not just sadness. It's a deep, profound sense of loss for the children you haven't yet conceived, or you've all also lost. It's a mourning of the future that you've imagined, but you're not there. And it's okay to feel this. It's more than okay. It is totally human and it is totally normal. But the problem is then you get anxiety. This also creeps in too. And, there's those medical treatments coming up. There's the uncertain future. There's the inability to plan. There's the constant wondering, will it work? Should I not go on holiday? Should I not start this? Should I not plan to do a sports race? What if I want to leave my job? I mean, there's so many, you're living in a limbo. And what will happen next year? What will next year bring? Why didn't it work for us this year? When will it be our turn? These are all questions that are likely to be going through your head, and you're not the only one. And during the holidays, these questions can feel even more intense. And then there's that exhausting performance of being okay. So putting on a brave face, laughing at the family jokes, pretending the comments about babies and family don't hurt. It's emotionally draining. So I want to provide you with a few practical tips. Emotional strategies. It's not about, it's not my focus area. Is not my expertise, but just based on what I have found works for me. So how do we navigate this? How do we protect our hearts while still participating in family life, which brings us joy? And it's really important to remember that being with family and friends, that brings us joy. And it is important to try not to hide away during this time, because you will only regret that in the future if you do that and you put your life on hold. So number one, I would say boundaries. They're not just important, they are absolutely essential. It's something I have to say I'm not terribly good at, but you may be. It's okay to limit your time at a gathering. It's okay to step away when you need a moment, you need a time. Find an excuse to go to the toilet and go and have some time by yourself. Say no to events that feel too overwhelming. And finally, communicate your needs clearly and kindly. Now we've got communication as the next one. This is really important. And for me, I think this is what I'm better at. And it's how I have survived and I suppose thrived in some circumstances. So with this one, you can prepare in some way in advance. You can maybe make some notes on your phone as prompts. You can write them in your journal so you can practice, so that you can kind of embed in your head what you might want to say, because there's nothing worse. And I've had it where that comment, just the one, and for some reason that just goes round and round and round in my head, the responses that I wish that I'd given. Whereas I think if you've kind of got some responses to what people might say, you can then respond in a way that's truthful to how you feel, that then you don't ruminate over that, you don't feel overwhelmed, you've put in place those boundaries and you're protecting your heart. So here are some ideas for you that you can communicate when you're getting emotional around this. So here's an example. This time of year is really hard for me. I'm struggling with fertility challenges, and being around family can bring up a lot of complicated feelings. I might need some extra love and patience. Now, if you know you'll be asked questions, you could always say something like this to a parent who will advise others on your behalf. So your parents could do this. For example, I know everyone means well, but questions about having children can be really painful for me right now. I'd appreciate if we could avoid those conversations and just enjoy being together. Now, if you want support from family and friends, but you haven't, you don't know what to say, this can be really helpful. I'm navigating some really challenging emotions right now. Sometimes I just need to be heard without anyone trying to fix things or offer solutions. Just being together can mean the world. So this one's quite good if you just want people to hug you, to listen to you, or not even say anything at all. It's just being aware. If you do not want to share what you're going through, and there's many reasons, and I've had this with clients before where they don't want to share and they want to keep that private, and that is absolutely fine too, then you can also say things. You can just say, for example, I'm going through some things that are not visible from the outside. I'm dealing with some really complex emotions at the moment, and some moments I might find harder than others. I might need some extra love and kindness at those moments, or I might need to walk away. So as you can see, it's kind of having yourself prepared with some of those phrases. I will pop those in the blog on my website that you can go and write them down if you find that helpful. But just have a think and come back to that and see if that helps you. I really hope it does. So things around food are easier. You just need to know what to say. For example, and again, this also depends on where you're at in your journey. Realize that as I'm going through this, you might have just be starting to conceive. You might have just found out you've got endometriosis. You don't necessarily know all the things that you need to be doing, and you haven't started those things. So don't be overwhelmed with what I'm saying. I am kind of speaking to those that have, for example, on an anti-inflammatory diet, who have given up gluten and dairy, and are working really hard on that, how you can modify and support yourself around Christmas. But I will give different scenarios. So for example, you could say something. So if you're going to a family, you're not hosting yourself. If you're going to your family for Christmas, or you're going to friends around for dinner or something, you could say, I'm managing some health challenges. I'd appreciate your understanding with my dietary needs during our Christmas get together. And this is, that's a good one. If you're not telling people why, they don't need to know why. That, if you don't want to share that, you don't need to explain, but it does at least give them something. Or it could be, I'm following a specific diet to support my health right now. Would you mind if I bring a dish to share that works for me? And I do that quite often. And it just means that I've got something that I know I can rely on. This is quite good if you're going to a dinner party or something like that. Or I know my dietary needs might seem a bit complicated, but they're really important for managing my health right now. I'm happy to explain more and even bring some delicious alternatives that everyone might enjoy. So, because the other thing is, if people are hosting, they can be overwhelmed sometimes by the idea of what you're doing. You may well have got used to what you're doing, or be getting used to what you're doing. And so therefore you don't see it as so stressful. But if you go somewhere, the host, and I know I've had this, over the years, like with my mother or my mother-in-law or whatever's going on, is to actually just explain what it is that you need. I've also had it where I've been around to people and they know you're gluten-free, but then in the best will intentions, and I know I've said this in my podcast before, again, is they'll buy gluten-free alternatives that often, the sweet alternatives that are often really sugary, and then I can't deal with those. So it's much better just to have a conversation with your host, and just say, okay, so I can't, what are you planning on doing? I can't have that, or I can have this, or I'll bring an alternative. And that can be a really good way of going about it. Now, if your family are particularly difficult with change, and I've had this with clients before where they're just like, no, don't believe in it, what you're doing. And they need a medical backup to believe you. then try something like my doctor or my healthcare provider or my nutritionist has, and don't say nutritionist, you think they won't believe it, just use doctor, has recommended a specific diet to support my treatment. And that could be just treatment of endometriosis if they know you've got it. I'll make sure to bring options that work for me without disrupting disrupting the family meal, and that can also work. So it's about keeping those communication channels open. It means that you aren't then stressed, and then also whoever you're going to see is not as well. So, like I've said, people are amenable to making changes. Often people really want to facilitate that. They want you to have a nice time. You just need to let them know how to do that. And I hope that's helped. So I want to talk about some practical strategies around the nutrition and self-care because, our emotions are complex. And like I said, food is actually really important. It's a significant part of our journey with endometriosis, with optimizing our fertility. Now, traditional British food, I'm British, so I'm going to kind of focus around that, isn't endo-friendly, really. There's lots of gluten around sort of the Christmas meals. There's lots of gluten, dairy, sugar, and alcohol. And I mean, just think of mince pies, mulled wine, chocolates, cheese board, biscuits, stuffings, bread sauce, luxurious puddings. I mean, it sounds absolutely amazing. But here's the thing. You can absolutely enjoy your holiday while taking care of your body. You do not need to completely break any habits you've got into if you don't want to. And again, this also comes down to mindset. Depends what you want to do, depends what you're prepared to do. And it depends where in your journey you are. If you're about to go for IVF or, I would probably invest in trying to stick to what you're doing as much as possible. So again, these are the choices. If you're early on your journey, then maybe just adding some, and I'll talk about it in a minute, adding some vegetables in and actually just enjoying Christmas, because joy is really important as well. So it's finding that balance. Because if you get stressed around food, this also can cause bloating. Often I've found in the past, it's not necessarily the food, it can be the stress that you experience. That's really, really important, that with any of this, that you understand that you make this as joyful as possible. You control what you can control, and the rest of it just go, do you know what? I'm just going to have fun. So like I said, you can bring your own dishes. You can offer to cook the main meal for everyone to enjoy. I've done that in the past with my in-laws. I've gone, do you know what? I love cooking. I'm just going to take on the cooking. My mother-in-law doesn't particularly like cooking, and so therefore it meant I had that control over it, but not everyone has that. It is possible to create gluten-free versions of mince pies and dairy-free. You can use gluten-free and ready-made flour. You can go as far as making almond. I've made almond-based ones with coconut butter. Now, you can also make dairy-free, dairy and gluten-free alternatives to bread sauce, which have been delicious as well. They're not quite the same, but when you have it as a medley with everything, then it's delicious. So make wiser decisions. That if you've decided to say, to pot with it all, and then you'll feel guilty, and then you'll feel bloated, and then you'll be upset that you've done all the hard work you've done, try and think what you can control. Like I've said, decide, okay, so I'm just going to make sure that I have half a plate of vegetables. Okay. Get all the colorful vegetables, which is great at Christmas. You do, I would eat all the sprouts because I love them all. I would literally have a whole plate of sprouts. And then you've got red cabbage, you've got the colour, you've got parsnips, you've got potatoes. You could ask whoever's cooking, can you stick some sweet potatoes in addition to the roast potatoes? So there you've got some colour. You've got lots of colour in there. And you kind of add in whatever the roasted meats are, which is really good and nourishing for you. What you can do with gravy is ask not for Bisto, because Bisto does have gluten in it. So if you're being really rigid, you could ask them to keep aside some of the kind of the juices. And when they add Bisto, if they're going to use Bisto, you can then just have the juices yourself and add some corn flour, or persuade them just to use corn flour with the juices, and you don't really need Bisto at Christmas. So that's up to you. You could ask for some dark chocolates for gifts at Christmas. My mother and my husband know that I love Booja Booja. These are gluten, dairy, soy, and refined sugar-free chocolates, and they're a real luxury, and I do not share them. I do not share them at Christmas. They are mine, they're expensive, and they are a pure joy, and I do not feel left out with these. Now, if you want to, if there's a cheese board and you really want cheese, then you can opt for goat and sheep. So this is much less inflammatory than cow. And get yourself some gluten-free biscuits and some nice oat biscuits. There's lots of options out there. And you may even have time, if you decide to make some. If you want to make some pretty ones, I've got a great almond and herb recipe that's easy to make. And I actually make it so I make my own milk. Not all the time, because none of us are perfect. But when I do, I will save the almond or whatever nuts, the pulp left over from that. And then I use that and mix it with herbs and then bake it and make biscuits to go with, with cheese. For the rare occasion that I do have cheese, and then I enjoy it. It's really good. So fortunately, Christmas Day meal, like I've already said, because it's a roast, it's fairly easy to have. And if you like all the condiments, such as bread sauce, cranberry sauce, the stuffings, then you can make your own gluten-free, versions. With any of the homemade stuffings, you just need to swap out the breadcrumbs and put in some gluten-free breadcrumbs. If you're not part of that, you could just bring your own. If you really want some of those, bring your own condiments, and that's what I would recommend. I am creating a Christmas recipe book, and I will pop that and my recipes and other recipes that I see in there, and I will be putting that on the blog webpage that you can download that. Desserts. So remember the 80-20 principle, okay? Remember that you may not be perfect around the sugar thing at Christmas. Just notice how you feel as well, because it also can give you an indication, or if you have been quite good on stuff, whether you get triggered. Bring along, for example, a vegan ice cream. Get a really nice quality one. I personally love coconut cream, which I add to Christmas pudding, and I might add a dash of whiskey and some, to get the flavour in there, so it tastes a little bit more like I can't think what it's called. The whiskey cream that you have, there's a name for it, to go with the Christmas pudding, because I love Christmas pudding. And again, I've made Christmas pudding in the past. Often you can just check on the packets if you're buying the Christmas pudding. You can, some of them come as gluten-free as well, so just check that. Also, I've got a really lovely Christmassy version of a cinnamon turmeric latte instead of an after dinner coffee. Or if you really want a coffee, then how about trying a decaf mushroom coffee? I'll pop some brands and names that I particularly like, British ones, a couple of American ones as well, on the show notes. So remember, for some of this, you may not have made these changes yet. And I've said this before, it may be going totally over your head. Don't be overwhelmed. What will click with you, and you can come back to this podcast later. You can come back to it next year. You might be at a different stage. So if you're still eating gluten and dairy, just try to eat loads of vegetables as your first step. Only eat sugar on a full stomach. I would definitely recommend that, because if you're eating sugar on an empty stomach, then that can really trigger bloating, and it can make a big difference. So if you're going to drink a little bit of alcohol, then one thing I would suggest is making sure you drink plenty of water. But spirits, actually, funnily enough, are a lot cleaner than wine. Some of you may find you've got histamine reaction if you kind of like rouge up on the cheeks. You've got migraines. Probably avoid the wine. You will feel better. I mean, I found gin and tonics I feel great on, have fun, and I only need like one. And again, it depends where you are in your fertility journey. If you're about to go for IVF, you might want to completely abstain from it. Others may go, do you know what, I'd like a glass of bubbly, or a couple of glasses. It's Christmas, I want to be able to relax, let my hair down. Do it. Again, it's this 80-20% rule. Don't try and strive for perfection, okay? There's also great alcohol-free options in the UK now, and I would also recommend, if you do have any alcohol, take NAC, so N-acetylcysteine, which is a really good supplement to support your liver, because your liver will always detox alcohol over hormones like estrogen. Right, I could literally carry on forever. So much to share, but this was a snippet. Next, I want to quickly touch on reflecting and moving forward. So as we approach the end of the year, I want you to do something really powerful. I want you to reflect. What worked in your health journey this year? There will be things that have worked. What didn't serve you? What small, sustainable changes can you commit to for 2025? And journal on this and look at it. And it's always fascinating to write down all the positive things that happened in the year, because that helps you going into next year. It helps you go into this Christmas period. It helps you realize that the year wasn't just bad. And when you're striving to get pregnant, the pregnant bit is like the big bit. It's the cherry on top of the mountain. But if you've made steps, if you found your way to this podcast, it means that you are making changes just by showing up, just by listening. So therefore, you are climbing that mountain, okay? And each step, you may have to go up and you go down a couple of crevices before you up again. Healing isn't linear. Your worth is also not determined by your fertility or by your body's current state, okay? That's important to remember. You are worthy exactly as you are. Remember this, because this is really important and has taken me a long time to get to this stage. This stops that sense of urgency, which is really, when you have that sense of urgency and you are put upon by, age, or you've got endometriosis and we've just done surgery and we need to get on with things. And yes, of course, but having that sense of urgency puts you into this panic mode, puts you into this fight or flight mode. It doesn't make your body feel safe. And you want your body to feel safe, because when your body feels safe, it feels okay to procreate. And also, if you have this urgency, you are not attracting what you want in your life, okay? The law of attraction is a law. It's a physical law, the same as the law of gravity. We attract like for like, magnets. The moon pulls the sea. You just think how strong that effect is. Well, our minds attract what we think. And if we are thinking in an urgent sense, what's interesting with the law of attraction, it doesn't understand the positive and the negative. It just hears the words. It's just, so if I suppose a better way of saying it is, if you think back to when you're kind of like single and you're in that dating scene and you might have split up with someone and you're feeling desperate. You're like, I'm never going to meet anyone. And you just ooze this desperation. And I remember that you just ooze this desperation and nobody wants to come near you. Whereas when you find joy in life and you're happy, you shine, you literally shine, and you put off these pheromones and life comes to you. The things that you then weren't looking for, but you're ready for, then come to you. And I definitely found that with meeting my husband. And I do think there is that definite element. And I know that I was in that place when I got pregnant with my son. I was at that point where I'd had the desperation, and then I moved into this place of, I'm going to live life for me. I'm going to find joy. And, when I got pregnant in February, so I went through that Christmas and I had a reflection time and I thought, no, I'm just going to step back. I'm going to start doing things for me. I'm going to start running again. I'm going to start doing the things that bring me joy. I'm going to sleep. I am going to nourish myself, but I'm doing it for me. I'm going to take away that sense of urgency. So I've kind of deviated, and it deviated a bit on that, but it is around this reflection piece. And and this is where Christmas is a lovely time. It's a really lovely time to reflect, to try as hard as it is to find the things that you are grateful for. Try and then focus in on the things that you want for next year, in a non-urgent sort of way. And I think, just recording this podcast, I think early next year, I'd really like to do something on vision boards. I do this within my group programs where I get my clients to create vision boards. And it's a very magical, beautiful step that is, it's very powerful. So finally, I want to share some short actionable tips. So why not try these over the Christmas period? Maybe 1, 2, some people might try all of them. So number 1, create a morning ritual that grounds you. That could be waking up in the morning, going downstairs or in an apartment, going along to the kitchen, getting yourself a cup of nice warm lemon, apple cider vinegar, and then either sitting, appreciating life, doing something that makes you feel grateful, or going and putting your feet outside. So if you have the luxury of being able to find somewhere where you can put your feet outside, bare feet, and just touch the ground, this really grounds you. Okay, this is really, really, really helpful. It makes you feel centered. It makes you start the day very nicely. Number 2, journal without judgment. Journaling is very, very powerful. I go in and out of it. And when I do journal, I find I'm so much calmer. Anxiety isn't there. And you can use it to answer those questions that you need answering. 3, move your body kindly. Move your body to how you feel that you need it. If you've got questions that you want answered, if you're about your journey, about your next steps, one of the things that's quite interesting, and I learned today actually, is about EMDR, which I talked about with Kat in a few episodes again with a psychotherapist, Kat. And with EMDR, I think I'm saying that right, it's about bilateral movement. So what's really interesting is apparently if you say a statement or a question that you need answering, should I go for IVF? Should we wait for a while while we prepare our bodies and feel healthier? Whatever the question is relating to your fertility, should I go for surgery? And then go for a walk or go for a run or swim or cycle, anything that moves both sides of your body. That bilateral stimulation apparently helps you. And the faster you move, apparently, it helps your brain help to process that question or statement so that you come up with the answer to that. So I'm going to be trying this out. I thought I would share that with you and see if that helps, because it's interesting when you go for a walk often and you're not plugged into a podcast or music or whatever, you have the space to think. That can help you answer questions or prepare you for Christmas or whatever it is to prepare you for this time of year. Okay. Practice self-compassion, especially. This is especially important right now. If you need to take some time out, you are worthy. Love yourself, respect that, and know that it is okay. 5, connect with support groups or those that understand. And this can be really, 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 really helpful at this time, particularly if you're with people who don't understand. So be in those support groups if you're not in the Thrive and Conceive with Endometriosis or other groups. And there are lots and lots of groups out there where you can be with like-minded people or ask them questions or just share how you're feeling at this time. Prepare a self-care kit for challenging moments. So it can just be something like you're going to go and have a bath, have some space away, or shower, whatever, just being away from others to give yourself that time. Maybe you can have a box of chocolates in there as well. Booja, really nice. 7, set realistic, gentle goals for 2025. And you can do that after Christmas. You can think about it with you and your husband. And this is, it takes both of you of communicating and making sure that you're understanding each other. And those realistic, gentle goals for 2025, we can talk more about those because I think I might do a podcast or even a Facebook Live in the Facebook group. So remember, you are stronger than you know. Your journey is valid and your hope is powerful. So keep coming back to that hope. Like I said earlier, if you hear of somebody getting pregnant and announcing it over Christmas, just think, you know what? They could do it. I can do it too. I will get there. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know what their journey is. So make sure to check out the blog post on the website for the episode and regularly check in on the podcast goodie bag, because I'm going to produce this Christmas recipe book with delicious anti-inflammatory, hormone-friendly recipes that I use to nourish myself during Christmas. I haven't created it just yet because this episode was not a planned episode. It is more just like, I've created this today. I decided I didn't want to do surgery. I've gone with my gut about what you need. So just think potato gratin, bread sauce, mince pies. Yes, you can have all of these if you want. Finally, I'm not going to be doing a normal episode on Christmas Day, so in 2 weeks' time. So next week, I've got an interview with a lovely lady, Keisha Kynes, about EBV, Epstein-Barr virus. It's very interesting. If you haven't found any answers as to your endo, then listen to this one. So Christmas Day, I've decided to bring you something really special, a little moment of calm with a meditation that will set you up for a great day. So make sure to listen on Christmas morning. I will promise you this will really, really, really help. You've got this, and I'm right here with you. I hope you have a better week after listening to this, and you can find some Christmas joy, and I shall see you soon. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and found some useful tips and actions you can take away and put into practice. If you loved listening, be sure to subscribe so you'd never miss an episode. It would be amazing if you could take a minute to leave an Apple or Spotify review. Your feedback helps us reach more women who might benefit and keeps the podcast going strong, and it only takes a second. If you know someone who would love to listen to this episode, please share it with them. So this season, I'm introducing the podcast goodie bag, where you will get access to a range of fantastic freebies contributed from our guests. To do this, you just have to sign up to the Fertility mailing list, which is where you'll be the first to hear my inner thoughts, tried experiences, and the latest products and service launches. The link to the podcast goodie bag sign-up page is in the show notes below. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you next week for another episode.